our mini series right now, we're just covering kind of some general grief topics. Most of them have been sent to us through Instagram and emails of something people wanted to kind of hear about. So this specific one, we're going to talk about grief with anticipating events, which I think can be a little bit different for people. This can just kind of spread several different ways, but really like those anniversaries, those birthdays, and really just events that you would expect the person you lost to be at, or in the past they have attended those events. So really one of the things that was super interesting to me through my grief with my loss of William, and for those of you who are just kind of joining us now, my little brother, who was 17 at the time back in 2020, committed suicide. And moving forward with really family events was a really hard thing for me to get through at first. It was really a huge focus of therapy. So I was kind of doing okay after like the slope down of, funeral, memorial stuff, all of that. But this happened in September. So right after that comes what? November, December. We've got Thanksgiving, we've got Christmas, and my extended family, we do a lot of things with them during those times. So we've had a tradition since 2016 that all my family from Wisconsin comes down here for Thanksgiving. And we've always hosted Thanksgiving at my house. My little brother is always a part of that, of course. And then every other Christmas, we try to go up to Wisconsin. So this was a year to go up there. And I was
it's not small. Your family has, it's an event. Yeah.
It's a lot of people. It's aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins. I mean, my family alone, there's like 4 siblings. So yes. And then we have families. So it's, it's a big event, and it's always something that just like is so important to me too. And I think that also is a huge role. I know a lot of people, like, if you don't have traditions on the holidays or those things don't sit as important to you, that might be different. But for me, I mean, those are probably the 2 times of the year I look forward to the absolute most because of what it is to our family. So as those neared, I freaked out a little bit. I was like, he's not going to be there. And the bigger part of that is like, how am I going to act in this situation? Sure. Like, am I going to be upset? Do I want to cry in front of my family? Not like they all didn't experience the same thing, have the same loss, are going to notice the same emptiness there. But the anticipation was always very hard, like very, very hard for me. Nerve-wracking was probably, I don't even know, like maybe it made me very anxious. But what I learned through that was the anticipation of the event was always worse than the actual event. Like by the time I got there, like is that normal?
Yeah. But I think having insight or being able to tolerate the anticipation and go to the event, you chose to still be with your family. You chose to still show up for something that brings you joy that you've always loved.
Yeah.
And so what do you think shifted when you were actually there?
Maybe it was the joy. So like, you book a vacation and you imagine you have an expectation, really. I think it's like an expectation of how something's going to turn out. And my focus wasn't on how are we going to like bond and grow as a family over this? Like what experiences and memories are going to make this year? It was all I could think was how am I going to respond to William not being there? Like, it's going to be such a glaring, not red flag, but like an elephant in the room. Like, right. He's not here. Do I address it? Do I not? Am I going to cry? A big thing for me.
Anybody going to say his name? Are we going to talk about it?
Are we going to acknowledge that he's not here? Like how do I act? I think was it. And around people you're so comfortable with too. Again, the people that were closest to you through this experience that also experienced it. And it's like, right. Okay, so now how do we move forward? He's not going to be here this year, and that's not normal. Like this is changing the dynamic. This is changing a lot of things. And it was hard. Like it's still, there's times, I don't know why it's going to make me hurt. No, but I'll get like, we'll be with my family and I'll think of him and I get very overwhelmed with emotion. Like it'll be so random. It's like, whoa, I miss him in this moment. Like I see my cousin Sam, they were always doing stuff together. So Matthew, Sam, Ben, and William will just, be playing a game and I'll see the 3 of them and William's not there. Yeah. And I just kind of walk away because I'm like, oh, like he should be right there. Yeah. And it still is a very hard thing. I don't freak out about the anticipation anymore. Now it's more in the moment, but And sometimes I even like feel him there. I'm like, oh, this feels right. Like everyone's here. And then I'm like, oh, he's not.
Yeah.
So that's been a very hard thing for me to navigate in grief, or I would say definitely when like a wave comes for me that I'm like, oh,
Yes.
this sucks. Like, I know you and I, before we started recording, we're talking about, we're going to Spain in October for Matthew's triathlon, like, well, he should be there. And Matthew had posted a TikTok a while ago. I hope he doesn't care me sharing this. Everybody go look at Matthew's TikTok account. But he,
for him. Go back.
Everybody, what did he put? It's like pictures of him and William, but it's pictures of like him winning races. And he's like, everybody asks me how I do it or why.
Oh, I saw that. I was the mess. I was weeping. Yeah.
Yeah. He was like, it's all for you. Like it was all for William, and showed just like how him and William used to do this stuff together.
Yeah. My first Gate River run, those two little stinkers were with you and Chris. And I will never forget, we're just like trucking along and William had to poop.
Yes, he did. And we had to stop at the porta potty.
We were like, keep going. I don't know. We'll be there. And I was like, okay. And like the trajectory of their relationship as brothers and love for sport and or each other and that relationship, you can't articulate it.
No. And I can't we watched one of his races over in Claremont this past weekend, just like a sprint triathlon he did. And I thought about that because I haven't been to one of his races in a while. They've been like in different areas when I couldn't go. And I thought about that and I'm like, I wonder like if he's thinking about William in this moment. And not even like I wore my sunglasses. I was like, oh, I'm kind of like teary eyed. My brother's just out there like swimming and running and biking. And like, I was very emotional about it. And I was like, God, like, not only am I just super proud of him, but I'm like, I know to him, like he does it because he loves it, but he's also just honoring William through it. And I just think it's so cool. And like, the way that he honors him through it is just, is really sweet to see. And I think that was kind of a help and shift of like, okay, so how do we honor him instead of mourn him when we're all together? Like, how do we make it a positive thing? Like,
Productive.
Let's talk about what he would be doing right now. Cause I know he'd make us all laugh, like, or what can we do to remember him in this moment when he should be here instead of just being sad that he's not? And shifting that perspective has been, a challenge, but like has helped.
Yeah. And I think one of the things you've mentioned previously is how for you have found peace and clarity through talk therapy, through relationships with others, and finding words for your grief. And I think for Matthew, he may also have that in friendships. I'm not speaking for you, Matthew, but I do think that physical movement is another way that people express and process and feel. And so for some people, sport truly is very therapeutic for them. And so I think it's really beautiful that he chooses to share that, in a TikTok or however, to just say, hey, this isn't just for me. Like, this isn't just about me putting up great times and winning races. This has a much bigger meaning and purpose in my life. And I think that's important when people are listening and thinking through, I don't know how I process my grief, or I just feel like I'm drowning in my grief right now, to know that that might be where you are, but you're not left there. You don't have to be stuck there. And it's not a one size fits all. And to your point, like some days talking about it might be really great. And other days you may just want to wear sunglasses and be left alone and like, just be let me feel, I need to feel this today.
Yeah. Another thing in that, as you were talking, I was thinking too, I think for me, the whole anticipation thing, another piece of that I, again, learned about myself through therapy is like, I don't like crying in front of people, which is very ironic that I'm like, here's this platform that millions of people can end up watching, but like, here, I'm crying. Cool. But that was a huge thing in therapy for me to realize, because that is another thing that just adds to that anxiety or the grief of anticipating an event. And it was like, because I know I'll be emotional, which then leads to, I might cry, and then people are there. And it's like, oh my God, I'm going to cry in front of people. And it's just like,
and then what happens?
Yeah. And you know what? And it's funny that you say that, because that's what I have to ask myself. So I cry.
Yeah.
Who cares? Like, what's going to happen if you cry in front of people? And I
In
don't
front
know
of people that love you, or in front of people that might comfort you. And I think that's the challenge, that we're living in a very disconnected period. All of us are living in a very odd relational world where we have social media and we have these relationships, but it doesn't always feel that authentic.
Mhm.
And not that we're being inauthentic, but these platforms aren't human connection.
Yeah.
And so I do think that adds this element of, but what will happen? Like, if I'm with people and I don't have composure, how will they respond? Because we may not be experiencing that frequently, and or seeing it happen with other people where we see it's totally fine. You know, I saw Jenn crying last week and people comforted her, so I'll probably be okay, right? Like,
Yeah.
we don't get that as often as I think other generations or cultures did, because they're just doing more life together
Yeah. I
in
think,
real life and not digitally.
yes, behind a screen where
Yeah.
writing can, like, when I write things out, I'll cry too, but no one can see me.
Yeah.
Totally fine. You know, like, you didn't know I cried writing that. Like, y'all, the way I cried writing my daughter's VPK post, not okay. But it's, no one knew until now.
Until now.
Until now, until I just outed myself. But yeah, it's that, like, it's that vulnerability piece. And especially for me, like, I was modeled, like, my mother is, if you guys know you know my story. So, like, clearly, it's also part of hers. Like, that was
Mhm.
somebody she was married to that died. That was a
Yeah.
child she lost. Like,
Yeah.
she's experienced these losses to their fullest as well.
Mhm.
And she's just so strong. Like, she is hands down one of the strongest people I know. And I'm not just saying that because she's my mom. I know everyone, like, puts that Mother's Day post, but, like, truly, to watch her, that's just the tip of the iceberg of what you guys have seen her go through, people that know me anyway. And, like, that's what I have modeling for me, right? But then on the other side of that, I've seen that woman cry maybe twice in my life.
Mhm.
Like, she is so strong. She does put up a very strong front too. And she
Mhm.
always has to be strong for me, for her kids, because she's her mom and she wants to protect us, right? But
Yeah.
I wasn't modeled somebody who cries over things or whines or complains or, any of that.
Mhm.
And it's not, I remember my therapist actually asking me, she said, if you cry, like, if you see someone crying, do you think they're weak? And I said, absolutely not. And she was like, then why do you feel weak when you cry? And I
Mhm.
was like, great question. But I do. Like, to me, I need to, like, be strong and get through this. But, like, if I see someone else cry, I have this, like, empathy and compassion for 'em, like, this is a normal response. This is healthy. You should be crying. And then it's like, take your own advice. Like, like, you can cry too.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the challenge of learning ourselves,
Mhm.
right? Like, we see everyone who's modeled in our lives, our parents, siblings, other people that we might be close to, and then we have to get to know the person that we are. And sometimes there's grief in that, or there's a disconnect where we're like, I'm not like I'm supposed to be like that, but I'm like this,
Yeah.
positive, negative, and different. But I think that leads to some of that uncertainty and that feeling of, well, this must mean something, as opposed to just, this must be the way I am. I think that's a beautiful thing about toddlers, where they're just like, I don't like that. Or they like throw themselves on the floor and cry. And sometimes I think, wow, where does that go? Like, we lose that just authentic expression. I mean, it's exhausting if anyone else is living with toddlers, right? But it's a really beautiful picture of someone who has no regulation in some ways, right? So, like, whatever they're feeling, they're
Like,
expressing.
I'm not holding this back. I'm all aware of how pissed off I am about these Cheerios being in the wrong colored bowl.
Yes,
You ruined
100%. And 5 minutes later, can I have a kiss?
my day.
But I just say that because I think that's the challenge of learning ourselves over time, and most of us are so busy and hurried that it takes something like a traumatic loss,
Mhm.
or something that feels catastrophic and or a substantial grief experience in someone's life, where they get dysregulated to a point where it's like, okay, the time is now. I'm going to pay attention to some more of this because I need to be able to continue showing up for myself and those that are important to me.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Um, I want to wrap this up with a cool story that I haven't told you
Yeah.
yet about
Ooh.
something that happened last week to a friend of mine. And I think this is really cool kind of for our House of Halls community, just to kind of put this out there. And we would love if you guys can share some stuff with us. Like if you have any sort of, I don't want to say ritual because that sounds like a weird word to me, but like, is there a better word for ritual? Like something you do on an anniversary or birthday or whatever to
I
honor
like
love.
the word ritual, but I'm also in mental health, so it's very familiar to
Ritual
me.
to me is like very like witchcrafty.
Yeah. Okay, just ritual, or you could say tradition, like
Yeah, we can call it a ritual. Just think good ritual, not witch ritual. Witch ritual. Okay, so my our best friend's daughter, her birthday is 3 days after my daughter's birthday. So they both celebrated their birthdays last week, and we did like a big birthday thing, but then they did like a little family thing with the grandparents and just ordered a cake for it. And they went up to Publix to get her cake, and the cake was already paid for, and somebody left a card. And I think actually the best thing I could do, I don't have it in writing. No, I do. I'm going to read this card to you guys because it was so sweet. And I would love to do this on William's birthday moving forward. So the bakery person hands him the cake, says it's paid for, and she opens the card. It says, "Hello, friend. This is tough to write, so bear with me. Today would have been my brother's 34th birthday. Unfortunately, he passed away October 2023, so he will forever be 33. Since I could not buy a birthday cake for him, I wanted to pay for yours. He was such a kind and caring man, and this is something he would have done if the roles were reversed. All I ask in return is that you take a moment to send a birthday wish up to Steve. I hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy your delicious cake. Be the sunshine in someone else's day. With love."
Happy birthday, Steve.
Right? Isn't that the sweetest,
Yeah.
like, way to honor? And I'll have you guys know I was crying. I've just read it
Yeah.
several times now. It was,
Yeah.
I just thought that was such a good idea. Like, how
What
cool.
a beautiful way to repurpose something
Yeah,
so painful. Yeah.
yeah. And like, I don't know if they'll ever see it. My friend posted it like on his Instagram, was like, "Hey, so if you're watching this, like, let's send up a birthday wish to Steve." So like it spread, and we all know about Steve's birthday now. Like it'll always be June 6th, and we know it's Cameron's birthday, and it's also Steve's birthday.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so cool, like a way
It
to honor
is.
somebody. And when you're anticipating an event that might be really hard, to find a way
Mhm.
to turn that into something that can like turn someone's day around, turn your day around. And I just thought that was really cool. So, and it
I
fit with
love that story. Oh, I love it.
so good. So good. So,
So good.
yes. So happy birthday, Steve. And we would love to hear about any like good ideas anybody else has.
Yeah. How do you all repurpose and or honor those that you've lost? Repurpose that grief, or pay it forward, or just
It's so cool.
put goodness into the world. Yeah. That's beautiful.
We've always done the traditional, like, write on a balloon and float it up there on his birthday, or a lantern type thing. But I had never heard the cake thing. So very
I
creative.
have never heard that. I
No,
think it's really cool.
such a good idea. So, all right. Well, we will see you guys. This is, again, part of our just like general grief series. So we have a few more topics to cover, and we'll see you guys on the next one.